The antitrust case against Google is moving forward. On Friday, this last Friday, the Department of Justice filed their revised proposed final judgment of what they think should be done to Google. Now, for those of you following along, you'll remember that last summer in 2024, a judge found that Google was indeed violating antitrust laws and was a monopoly in the search engine space. The Department of Justice then proposed that in order to resolve this problem, that Google should be broken up into mini Googles, essentially selling off the Google Chrome division and selling off the artificial intelligence division. That was last November. In December, Google returned back with their proposed remedy for how they should be themselves punished. Essentially, when a kid does something wrong and they have to get on timeout or something for it, and you say, well, kid, you were being pretty naughty. What do you think the punishment should be? And then the kid comes back to you and says, 1 second of timeout. That's essentially what Google did in December. They filed a document which said that nothing should change at Google, that they should not have to get rid of any of their web browsing or artificial intelligence or anything, but that they would file extra paperwork, twice the paperwork. In fact, they essentially they proposed filing duplicates of paperwork for any deals that they make, and that ought to do it. That ought to fix all the monopoly problems. That was their proposed thing back in December. So then the Department of Justice has the opportunity to counter that again, and that's what happened this last Friday. So what we have is a revised proposed final judgment, and it is pretty straightforward, but there are a couple of key changes. First and foremost, in fact, I'm just going to read part of it to you here. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. On November 20th, 2024, plaintiffs filed their initial proposed final judgment, focused on restoring competition in the general search services and general search text advertising markets, addressing the scale advantage that Google's unlawful monopoly maintenance afforded it, and preventing Google from circumventing the remedy by other means, such as leveraging the fast-evolving AI space, blah, 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 blah. Now, with the benefit of further remedies discovery and consistent with the court's September 18th scheduling order, plaintiffs respectfully submit their revised proposed final judgment attached as Exhibit A. Exhibit A. Plaintiff's revised proposed final judgment, the RPFJ, maintains the core components of the initial proposal, namely the prohibition on search-related payments to distribution partners that have effectively frozen the ecosystem for over a decade, raised insurmountable barriers to new entry, and created a system dependent on Google's monopoly payments. The proposed final judgment reaffirms plaintiffs' proposal to end such payments while making minor clarifications. The proposed final judgment also reaffirms that Google must divest the Chrome browser, an important search access point, to provide an opportunity for a new rival to operate a significant gateway to search the internet free of Google's monopoly control. But they also did one key change. They say a few significant items have changed. As detailed further below, plaintiffs no longer seek the mandatory divestiture of Google's AI investments in favor of a prior notification for future investments, and have modified the ad syndication remedy to focus on parity, transparency, and control while removing the query volume limitation. Okay, so what does all that mean? So essentially, the Department of Justice is saying Google needs to sell off Google Chrome. It can no longer own the web browser Chrome. Pretty straightforward. Whether or not you think that's a good idea, it's a straightforward idea. But that there will be no significant change or limitation to Google's AI development. So Google can continue down the AI road. They simply need to file more paperwork if they're investing into, say, purchasing other AI companies in the future. Okay, fine. And then the big one, honestly, I think this is the largest one, is that the DOJ is holding firm that Google cannot pay other companies, other web browser makers, to make Google search the default search engine in those web browsers. And why that's really huge is it means that Mozilla Firefox will no longer be getting 80+% of its revenue because that's where it all comes from as of this summer, should this all come to pass. Which it could have massive, massive repercussions for Mozilla, especially for Mozilla. Apple also technically is impacted by this because Google pays a huge amount of money to Apple to be the default search engine for Safari. In fact, far more than Google pays to Mozilla. Far, far, far more. But Apple has so many other sources of revenue that the impact to Apple's bottom line is not going to be significant, at least not significant enough to plunge Apple into bankruptcy. Mozilla, on the other hand, this is where they get their money. They get all their money from Google. So it going away is pretty massive. Now, Google has come out and made a statement around this. They made this statement to Reuters, quote, "Sweeping proposals continue to go miles beyond the court's decision and would harm American consumers, economy, and national security," end quote. Now, I don't know about national security. No forcing Google to stop paying Mozilla to make Google the default search engine in Firefox. I don't see how that has any impact on national security at all. Also, the divestiture of Google Chrome. It seems like to me that Google is preparing for this eventuality. They've created this Friends of Chrome and Chromium foundation within the Linux Foundation just recently. And it seems to me that they're kind of preparing for a post-ownership of Chrome world where Google can still maintain some level of control over the Chrome web browser without actually owning it. That's what it appears to be happening to me. Whether all that comes to pass or not, we'll have to wait and see. In April, the judge is going to hear these arguments, right? Both Google and the Department of Justice are going to come together and they're going to argue it out, right? They're going to go back and forth on it, and then the judge is going to go off and think. He's going to spend a couple of months thinking about it, right? There's going to be no snap judgments. And I believe it's July or August. I should have that up here, but it's this summer that the judge is scheduled to make his final ruling about what those remedies are going to actually be. Now, so we don't know for sure how the judge is going to rule. It seems, based on the judge's ruling last summer, that the judge is inclined to agree with the plaintiffs in this case, with the Department of Justice. So the odds that Google is going to get off with a slap on the wrist and a little extra paperwork seems incredibly slim. There are a couple of possible get-out-of-jail-free cards here, however, for Google. The first is that there are changing political climates. So the Department of Justice, the individual responsible for overseeing this case within the Department of Justice, is still a holdover from a previous administration. It's an interim position at the moment. The person that is going to be put in place is awaiting confirmation that was nominated by President Trump. Once that confirmation occurs, which could occur at any time, that may change. It's entirely possible that the new administration will change somehow the proposed remedies prior to the point at which arguments are made in April. Uncertain. It doesn't seem 100% likely. Google has been very clear that they're kind of lobbying President Trump to go easy on them. They were up on at the Capitol just last week talking with lawmakers. So that may be a thing that happens. But on the same token, President Trump has also made it very clear that he's going to continue to be very hard on big tech. So unknown. We're seeing a lot of big tech companies making very big gestures about stopping censorship, stopping DEI programs, notably at Meta and Facebook, and based on the new administration's policies. So will Google do something similar in order to try and get a lighter sentence here? We'll see. We'll see. In fact, some of that does appear like it might be starting to happen quietly, but we'll have to see on that. The other thing that may occur is Google can appeal this. I mean, realistically, I mean, we're talking the legal system here. There are ways, if you've got enough money to throw at things, where you can kick the can down the road for a long time. So the reality is Google can file an appeal in this case. Now, the appeal can be rejected, but Google can do that, and that can delay this ever further. However, as it stands right now, it looks likely that what the final remedies will be in this case will almost 100% certainly include Google no longer being able to pay Mozilla, Apple, and others to have Google search engine be the default search engine in Firefox and other browsers, right? Which is going to have massive, massive changes to the web browser and web search engine ecosystem. That's a pretty big deal. That's a very big deal, in fact, and a lot of search engines out there could benefit from this. A lot of web browsers could benefit from this. A lot of web browsers could be hurt by this as well, specifically Mozilla Firefox. I mean, they're going to lose their funding. We'll see. We'll see exactly what happens, but we're going to keep following it as it goes forward. We probably won't know a whole lot more until the arguments occur in April. It's probably the next time you'll hear about this story in any real significant way. And then after that, it's this summer. Assuming, of course, that Google does not file their appeal, which would probably occur sometime after the summer ruling. Right? Because they're going to file their appeal as late as possible to stay and stop the actual remedies from being implemented, but to kick down that can as far as possible, right? So if they start filing things too soon, things will wrap up quicker. And that's not what Google wants. Google wants to extend this legal process as long as humanly possible, to make it cost as much money for taxpayers as humanly possible. That's Google's goal here. So that's probably what they're going to do. Thank you to all the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing me to do this reporting, free from all influence from Google and every other company. Google can't silence me. Google can't censor me, because if you go to lunduke.com, you can support the Lunduke Journal, and I don't take a penny from any big tech. None. Not a nickel, not a dime. Thanks to all of you. And again, lunduke.com, best website on the internet. It's fantastic. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare end broadcast.